Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for our pre-arrival webinar today. Today, we will be talking about teaching assistantship preparation and English proficiency requirements. And we are joined by a number of wonderful campus partners. So if I haven't gotten a chance to meet you, my name is Grace Fuller. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the manager of International Student Experience and Engagement at ISPO, the International Students and Programs Office. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Gabi, to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabi Hoffman, and I am the Assistant Director for Student Experience and Engagement, also at ISPO. So I work alongside Grace. I'll pass it on to Shauna.
Hello, everyone. It's so happy to see you all on the webinar today. My name is Shauna Slabiota. I also use pronouns she and hers, and I'm from the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs, formerly known as the Graduate Division. And I will pass it off to Martha.
Thank you, Shauna. Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited that you're here today, and I hope to answer all of your questions. I work with the Teaching and Learning Commons, specifically the English language program for international instructors. And I want to welcome you, and I go by the pronouns she, her, hers. And please ask us as many questions as you can. We want to make sure we can help you in making your important decision about joining us at UC San Diego. And now I'm going to hand it off to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Erilyn Henriksen.
Hi all, my name is Erilyn, and I also go by the pronouns she, her, hers, and I work in the Engage Teaching Hub, which is part of the Teaching and Learning Commons with Martha. And I have incredible honor of getting to work with y'all as you prepare to teach, whether that's in a TA type role, an instructional assistant role, or whether that's preparing, if perhaps later in your time here, preparing to teach as part of your career as well, and perhaps even teaching your own course at some point. So we offer workshops and consultation. I'll talk about all that. Sorry, forgot about that. Anyway, I'm Erilyn, and I'm so happy to be here. Can't wait to talk with y'all more in a bit.
Wonderful. So we have a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. So if this is your first pre-arrival webinar, you'll notice that you are in listen-only mode, which means you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So the way that you'll interact with us for today's session is through the Q&A feature. You can submit questions there. You can start submitting questions at the very beginning of the webinar, but please know that we do have time dedicated at the end for an open question and answer session. And if for some reason we don't get to your question, you can always follow up by submitting your question to icontact@ucsd.edu. And then finally, we are recording. So you'll be able to view this webinar recording as well as other webinar recordings at iwebinars.ucsd.edu. Please give our team around 10 to 15 business days for us to be able to edit and upload the website. But I do know that there are a couple of previous pre-arrival webinar recordings already posted on the website, so you can peruse those at your leisure. And then this is just a friendly reminder, if you haven't used the Q&A feature before, this is what that will look like for you. The chat has been disabled for attendees, so our panelists might be sharing relevant links in the chat, but again, you won't be able to utilize the chat for today's session, so really please make sure that you get to use the Q&A feature. All right, a brief overview of how we'll spend our time together today. So we'll start off with some reminders from our office, the International Students and Programs Office. We'll also have some reminders from our partner, Shauna. And then majority of today's session will be dedicated to English language program for international instructors, as well as English language certificate exam, and then the teaching support. And again, we'll end today's session with an open Q&A so that if for some reason we don't cover the answer to your question in our session, we'll have that open Q&A at the end. And with that, I'll pass it to Gabi.
Great, thank you, Grace. So I wanted to take a moment and just go over some reminders, some checklist items that some of you might be aware of if you've been getting our newsletters, but some of this might be new to some of you who have just joined us or haven't received our newsletters yet. And that is our ISPO website, our first steps checklist for all of you to take a look at. So on our iNews student site, this is housed within the ISPO website, we've put together helpful getting started lists for all of you in order to begin your journey here with as much information as possible, but in a digestible way in checklist format so that you know what to do to start your studies here. Grace has helpfully put that in the chat for you to take a look at. So as you'll see here, we have a specific section just for graduate students, just for master's and PhD students to click on. This will take you to additional information that tells you a variety of information, such as how to apply for your visa documents, what those steps look like, how to apply for your US visa, how to get started with health insurance, health immunization requirements, how to get certain accounts set up and so forth. So I definitely recommend taking a moment and visiting iNews Student. We're bookmarking it now just to take a look later so that you know how to get started and where to find resources to help you on your journey here. With that, I'll pass that right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Shauna, and I have some reminders that I'm sharing from our graduate admissions team. So first of all, your application portal includes a lot of helpful information for newly admitted graduate students. And I'm going to go ahead and also post the link to your portal in the chat. And I am going to show a screenshot of this page in just a moment to point out a couple of specific items to pay attention to. It's important to remember that most students are admitted provisionally, which means they still have to submit official documentation to graduate admissions. Usually this is transcripts or confirmation of a degree that's been conferred to you previously. And you can find a list of all of these documents, again, in your application portal. There's a section that says pending admissions documents, and I'll be pointing that out to you in just a bit. Just want to, as a reminder, say that provisional admission should not impact your ability to get immigration documents. So the process that Gabi has been talking about, you should be fine to go through your visa checklist and everything with a provisional admission. And if you have any questions about your application, please feel free to contact our graduate admissions staff at gradadmissions@ucsd.edu. Just a quick note, this is a very busy time for admissions. Our staff is working as hard as or as quickly as they can, but at this time of year in particular, there may be a bit of a delay in receiving a response. But just please, we appreciate your patience at this time of year. Great, thank you. So this is what your application portal will look like once you log in. Just a few things I wanted to point out. In the upper left-hand side of the screen is where you can find your UCSD PID. That is information you will need over and over as you are preparing to come to campus. Below that is where any status updates would be shown if there's a change in your admission, perhaps say from provisional to final. Below that, you'll find any forms that need to be submitted. And continuing down the row, you'll see where your pending admissions documents would be listed if there was, if there's something that you need to submit for your provisional admission. The other item that I want to, or the other section I want to point out is in the bottom right where it says admitted students. This is where you will find links to the admitted students section of our website. I'm also going to put that in the chat as well. And there are lots of items here for students who are admitted for grad school and getting ready to arrive. There's some action items for you to complete and kind of a general timeline of when all of these items are due. So definitely check that out. And with that, I'll pass it along.
Hello and welcome. I was looking in the Q&A section. I know there's a question there and I will answer it within the context of this. I started writing one. So welcome. I am the coordinator of the English language program, and especially one of the major parts of my job is the English language certification exam, which is the required exam for the TA-ship. Next slide, please. And I do want to welcome you. I want you to see some of the students, the many students that have participated in the program. It's important that you know that you have support as a TA, and you even have support before you TA. All of these students qualified to teach. We have a very fun class. It's very active. We practice in the class, and that's to support you in your confidence in your role as a TA. The TA roles do vary. You'll have different job duties. We want to make sure that you're confident in all that you're being requested to do. Next slide. And we're happy that you're here, but we also hope that if you haven't yet said yes to UCSD, that today helps you make that decision. I do want you to know that the agenda I'll be covering, all the resources for the ELP-ii are free. This is a frequently asked question. The language policy is a part of the graduate division, and it is a policy for TA employment. I'm happy to tell you that there will be announcements of change. Therefore, you should keep checking your department website as well as the grad division website for any of those changes that would be effective for fall 2022. Today, I'm going to cover the top 10 questions that are asked, and I hope to answer them in the Q&A as well. We'll cover the skills that are how to apply, signing up for the test, the skills, results, and any of your questions. And so here's some information. I know there's a lot of text here, but you'll want to go back and review it in the recording. Why do we have the ELP-ii? And specifically, why do we have this policy? Well, we have this policy for a number of reasons. The state of California requires us to ensure that our employees, as TAs, have the requisite language skills. And the reason that we test you is to make sure if you want to TA, that you will have the resources if you're not yet ready to TA by the language requirement. It is also a UC system-wide requirement. All of the UCs have this policy, and it does satisfy the California English policy in higher education. Next slide, please. So what does this program do? The program supports all of the international graduate students in their language readiness for employment as TAs. We offer a number of workshops. Students who test into the program will have classes, and we provide a number of ways in which you're able to join us so that you can develop the skills as you need to. As it happens, the skills for teaching and for practicing for the English language test, well, they also apply to job interviews. And so for those of you who will be employed for internships, although we have an amazing career services, some of the students pop in to visit me to ask for my support from the perspective of English language. And all of our services are free. And again, all of our services are free. I get that question all the time. So just to let you know, I do provide the English language certification exam for a few departments that have a fall quarter first year TA requirement. We offer a pre-fall bridge program. It's a wonderful program, 2 weeks. We get to work with you intensively to help support you and to ensure that you're ready to TA, ready to pass the ELCE for a fall quarter TA-ship. For the English language classes, we do ask that you have a teaching requirement to take those classes. However, Zoom has allowed me to expand our reach, and I am able to support you via Zoom when classes are in person. However, that will shift, but hopefully I'll be able to add more resources via Zoom for you. And the workshops include effective presentations, presentation design. There's a pronunciation series, a conversation lab. There's also the popular What is the ELCE workshop. We do also work with faculty. I have consultations, class observations, as well as feedback for our faculty. And next slide. And now what you're seeing is a table of what the policy looks like and a quick reference for how to figure out if you have to test. Now, again, you're seeing the current policy. It's my hope that we revise this policy and so that you would see that you might actually qualify to take the exam, or that you might even be exempt. So look for those changes for fall 2022, but I'm excited about them. So this is the current policy. If you have a TOEFL speaking subscore of 28 or higher, or with CSE, which ran a pilot program of 26 to 30, you do not need to take the ELCE. For those of you who scored within a 23 to 27 on the TOEFL speaking section, then you qualify to take the ELCE. For those of you who are admitted with a TOEFL waiver, you also qualify to take the English language certification exam. Below the 23, we're going to ask you to develop your skills first. And this is because all of our data shows that below that 23, there's a higher percentage of does not qualify to TA. We want to make sure that you're ready to take the test before you take it. And that's because for some departments, specifically computer science, you get one chance. If you're a master's student, you get one chance to take the ELCE. And you don't want to waste that one chance, okay? If you have a PhD, if you are a PhD candidate, then you have an opportunity to retest up to 3 times, okay? Next slide, please. So here's where we get to our 10 FAQs, and I'll try to get through them quickly so I can take your questions. I was admitted with a TOEFL waiver. Do I still have to take it? Yes. At this point in the language policy for employment as a TA, yes. You still have to take the ELCE, and the good news is you qualify. How do you sign up? First, you have to apply to TA. The hiring department will schedule the test, okay, and notify you of the test date and time. So it's important to note, as a graduate student, while you must pay attention to campus-wide policies, you are now a member of your department. And therefore, the department policies are where you should check in. So first apply to TA, and then the hiring department, whether it's your home department or another department, Another department might want to hire you because you bring a unique skill set. So check out what the hiring department will notify you that they want you, and then they will set it up for you. Now, how do you apply to TA? Well, you apply by looking at those open positions that are posted both on your department and the Graduate Division ASE websites. The test is offered for new admits for all students actually in the month of September, and then finals week and the week after each quarter. So those will be accessible to you on the ELP-ii website. Next slide. For FAQs 5 to 7, is the test in person or via Zoom? It's currently via Zoom. By September, we hope for it to be in person, and that's why the department will be the main point of contact, because it's usually held in person at the department. Okay, so what happens if you're nervous during the test? Well, nervousness is actually, I think, a good thing. I think nervousness is a part of the excitement of the occasion. But if you're nervous, we don't want you to be, so we're going to help you to calm yourself. The faculty representative and we want you to succeed. We will guide you. We will support you, but know that nervousness, if you rethink about what that means, it's excitement, and we want you to be excited about being a TA. And what happens if you don't know? One of the questions, there are two parts. There's a warm-up, and then the second part of the exam is where you teach us. And you won't know what you're going to be asked to teach. We don't ask you to prepare something. And that's because we need to know that your language and skills will be able to handle unexpected questions that our students ask. And so what to keep in mind is you can always ask for another technical question. We're rating and scoring your English language. We're not rating and scoring if you were correct. So this is all about how you communicate. And if you communicate clearly, I'm not really confident about that particular area, or I'm not really sure, but I'll do my best. Or you can say, wow, it's not something I really am familiar with. Can you ask me another question? We say yes. We ask you a different question. What we will not do is ask you a question you've prepared for. That's not the exam. But how do you prepare? You prepare by reviewing the content, the course topics of the class you want to TA. And you will also probably interview with the professor of the course. So do those things, and that will help us to help you. And tips for technical success: review the content, think about the question, and in the moment of the test, it's okay to say, all right, let me think about it. And then, okay, I'm ready to teach. And we're scoring that English. Next slide, please. So fine, the last FAQs here. How long is the test? And can I know the test questions? Well, it's 10 to 15 minutes. It's live, so you won't know the questions, but it's the same format for every student because that honors consistency for every student and fairness and equity. There are two parts. The first part's your warm up. We get to know you. And then the second part is when you teach us, your students. And that's the test. We will stop you probably before you finish teaching. It's not that we want you to get to an answer. It is that you are teaching us and we're focused on your language skills. How do you pass the test? Well, one, you have to prepare. Review what you're going to teach and then practice teaching. Okay. A lot of the students we meet during the test do not know the content because they didn't look at it. We want you to be ready, just like you would prepare for a job interview, which is what this is. You would prepare for the ELCE. Organizing information is critical. Remember to teach us, your students. Avoid answering. Many students try to answer the question and speak only to the professor. There's a difference between answering and teaching. And the secret is organizational structure. Okay. What happens if you don't pass? Well, you have an opportunity to develop your English language skills, and you can take it again. Please note, as I've already mentioned with CSE department, if you're an MS student, you get one chance to qualify to TA. One chance. So really think about and be ready for that one chance. If you qualify to TA, you'll have the TA-ship, and some of you might need some additional support, but don't worry about that now. And next slide. It's important to know this, what I just said. PhD students have to qualify by the third test. MA students have to qualify by the second test, with the exception of computer science. You have to qualify by the first test. Next slide. And now we get to what is the test? It's based on, like our GPA system, our grade point average system at UC San Diego. And that's on a 0.0 to 4.0 scale. So if you get a 4.0, you know you got an A. And we use a rubric, meaning that we have a form that we use to guide us in how we score you. We all use the same rubric. The faculty have it. I use it. These are the areas that we're scoring you. Fluency, which is the smoothness with which you deliver your speech and teaching. Pronunciation accuracy, listening and question handling, the vocabulary that you're able to use, grammaticality, and that important category of organizational clarity, how you break the concept or problem down into parts so that you build understanding for a student. It's also how you link your ideas and create the steps toward it in your English. And when you do that, we're able to follow the logic of the idea. This is true for any way that you present or teach. And we also assess, but we don't score this, how well you connect with us, your Zoom board, if it's via Zoom, but hopefully will be in person, and therefore your board work, and your engagement and interactivity. We want to know that you'll be engaging and interactive with your students. And that means looking at them, pausing, asking them questions, or checking in. Okay, right, clear, makes sense? Those are all aspects of language that help you be a successful instructor, whether you're faculty or a teaching assistant. And the minimum score to qualify to TA is a 2.5, and the minimum score to pass is a 3.5, just like a GPA. Next slide, please. Now, I want to encourage you always to use the board. It supports your clarity. When I test students and they don't use the board well, they don't use Zoom, they don't use the Blackboard, they tend not to use it to their advantage for clarity. As I mentioned, it's assessed, but not scored. If you use it well, that can help you achieve higher in the clarity section. If you don't use it at all, we note that you didn't use it or you didn't use it well. It doesn't impact your score. But if it's used well, it can help you. Next slide, please. And now we get to what exactly is the test. I mentioned it earlier. 2-part interview, a general warm-up. We want to get to know you, and then the teaching part. In person, you'll be in a room with 2 of us, a faculty member and the linguist. And that's where first you sit down during the warm-up to get comfortable, and then in person, you will stand up and go to the board and teach. On Zoom, no matter where you are, I feel you're probably more comfortable, but you will use the Zoom whiteboard, or if you have a tablet, you'll use that. In physics, we will annotate slides the same, and in the math department, if it's via Zoom, you'll annotate a slide. We know that if you don't have a tablet, that it's challenged to write as clearly as you want to, but note that if it's via Zoom, we're okay with that. We understand. And the committee is the professor from the hiring department and a language assessor. Next slide, please. What can you know about the technical question? I always get this, what question will I be asked? Well, I don't know. I don't know what the professor's going to ask. And quite frankly, the professor doesn't know either. That we don't know what class you're going to TA. We get this information at the very last possible minute. So what we do is we let you know it's a foundation level question. It's what a student would ask you. It's not what the professor will ask you on a midterm as a grad student. It's what a student is going to ask you. And if you haven't been assigned a TA class, then the question is going to come from the class you want to TA. We're not going to guess for you. So you have a lot of power in this to be able to have the best test possible to showcase your language skills. Use that opportunity. It's recommended to use the Zoom board and the Blackboard. It's not required, but frankly speaking, I would say use it. And the test will end when we have heard enough of your language to make a recommendation, which might mean you don't finish the question, but maybe you started early in the question. Usually we get to the answer, but we'll stop you. And you're teaching learners, not the professor. So you should aim your teaching at the learner level. Okay, next one, next slide. How to do your best. Here are my tips. Prepare. You would prepare for a job interview. You need to prepare for this job interview as a TA. Before the test, you want to review the content of the course you're going to TA or you want to TA. Practice and use organizational framing to build the information for a student. You want to remember to pause. Many students are so excited that they forget to breathe, to stop and pause and check in. Like, this is the key point. And then you teach that and you say, okay, clear, good. Now let's move on to the next step. And you want to pose questions. You're the best language skills, you're able to pose a question like, why is this important? Or, so what does this mean? And this means this, or this is the key step because. Posing that is powerful English language ability. Remember to do that. The worst thing, I think, the one thing is to simply lecture us and to speak too fast without pause. Nobody can learn if you're speaking too quickly and not checking in and pausing. No one. So remember, it's all about control, checking in, stopping, making sure, asking questions, and in a nutshell, speak with control and the intention to be clear. Teach, don't answer, breathe. All right, next slide, please. And this is, we're getting to the end, so I just want you to see the formal tables that we use. The green light situation here is green light means go, 3.5 to 4.0, you get a pass, you can accept the TA offer, you will not need additional training, you will not be tested again. And you can see where the yellow zone is a conditional certification. It means you usually have one skill to polish. You will get some training. You will not be tested again. The orange provisional pass, that's the 2.5. And that's, yes, you qualify, but yes, you have to take the class. And yes, you will be tested again. And then we have the red light. It just means you're not ready yet. We want to make sure when you take this test the first time that you're ready to take it. And that's why that 23 is a critical TOEFL bubble score. You either qualify or even pass, or you don't. Okay, so that's that bubble score. And then you do not get to accept an offer. For those with a TA requirement, yes, the course is required. If you don't have a teaching requirement, then you need to decide what's the next best step for yourself. And then will you test again? Yes, you will test again. And we always hope that you qualify. In our last test round, 99.9% of the students passed their test. Bravo, right? We're excited about that. Next slide, please. So what happens when the test is finished? You leave, we tell you it's okay, you leave. As the department will know the recommendation as soon as the test is done, I send those results. What I don't send immediately are the details, and that is because I usually am the language assessor, and I am booked back to back to back with language exams. We have to cover all of the testing. So the department won't know the details, but they will know if you've passed and or qualified to TA or did not qualify. The recommendation details will come. Next slide. And in wrapping up, these are the students who tested into my class. And you can see, although they had to take the class, please know that it's not another ESL class. It's a professional skill development class. And they practice teaching. You can see they work at the board. These were my students who taught in winter 2020, just before we shut down for the pandemic. They had a great time. They learn how to teach. They support each other. You get to meet students from many different disciplines, not just your own. The more students you meet in the international community on this campus, the more you feel that belonging, that idea that, yes, I am a Triton. I am not just an international grad student. And you meet more students across disciplines that become your friends. And they are amazing. We are still in touch. They had been successful, and some of them have even graduated. And you're going to have that success too. So I'm happy that you know about this resource. And next slide, please. And I want to thank you for listening. I know it's a lot of process. In the future, we hope it's far less process. I want to introduce you next to my amazing colleague, Dr. Erilyn Henriksen. She's an education specialist with us in the Commons and at Engage Teaching. Now she's going to introduce information about TAs. So take it away, Erilyn.
Thanks, Martha. I'll just say that, first of all, if you get the pleasure of working with Martha while you're at UC San Diego, that is enough reason to come. She's amazing, absolutely phenomenal. And so Martha and I are both part of the Teaching and Learning Commons. And what this is it's a structure at UC San Diego where we focus on both student academic success. So you as a student and you as an instructor as well. So we work with faculty, we work with graduate students, and we also work with undergrads. And what's really unique about the graduate students, though, is you are both students and you might end up being instructors while you're at UC San Diego as well. So we work with you in both those capacities. All right, so on the next slide, we have some information about, first of all, you'll hear this term IA a lot, and an instructional assistant encompasses, it's sort of an umbrella term. So a term that includes a few different titles, including teaching assistants, instructional apprentices, which is really similar to teaching assistant, but you might get credit, for instance, depending on your department, for doing that role. Tutors, and then readers, and readers tend to be more in a grading capacity. All right, with all of these, you're going to be applying to the positions through your department. So this is not something, unfortunately, that the Teaching and Learning Commons can help you is to actually get a role, but we can help prepare you for that role, either once you have it and or as you're trying to apply for it. So participating and work with us can actually help strengthen your application for some of the instructional assistant positions, but we can't actually get those for you. You have to do that. All right, so once you apply, and let's say you've taken care of all the testing, all of that, and you're approved, you get the role. Now, how do you do it well? Right? How do you make this a great experience for you so that it's actually a lot, because teaching can be a lot of fun. And I know some of you already know this, some of you might already have teaching experience that you're bringing in. So here's how we can help you. This is where my programs come in, or the programs that I get to work with. First of all, there's an online course that is just about 2 hours total. It's pretty short, that you'll be asked to do as soon as you become an IA. And this is really meant to be supportive. There's 4 modules sort of helping you think through what it means to be a leader in the classroom, what it means to teach in a diverse classroom, especially in the context of teaching in the United States here, and specifically at UC San Diego. Also, think about academic integrity, how to support that in the class, and how to work with students that might have different abilities within that class. So that will be required, and it's meant to be supportive and helpful. But it's really the most introductory level information. We hope you have more training. Departmental training is your next step, and hopefully your department will have some great training opportunities. And each department is supposed to have an IA faculty advisor. So this is a faculty member that is intentionally, they are appointed to be there for you as an IA. So they're sort of like a liaison for you and an advocate for you, a mentor. And often they are in charge of the training for the department. And some departments have a few workshops that they offer. Some have a pedagogy course that you'd actually enroll in and learn how to teach. And then Engaged Teaching Support is sort of here for you throughout. So what that looks like on the next slide, Engaged Teaching Hub Support, we have consultations. Oh yeah, this is the online course that I mentioned before. And then the departmental training is going to vary a bit, but then we have a lot that we offer throughout. And again, always meant to be what you need to support you as best we can. Before you start, if you're going to be IAing in the fall or anytime during the year, we have a new IA teaching symposium that happens in the week right before fall quarter starts. So this is, we've moved this remote when COVID came, and quite honestly, we're going to keep a lot of it remote because it works really well for people's schedules, depending when you're coming to campus, et cetera. So we have workshops and other sessions during that to sort of help think through what you might, the strategies you might need for day one of being an IA. And again, that's open to anyone, whether you are planning to be an IA which again is TA or tutor or reader, in the fall or in the winter or in the spring, anytime that year, you are invited to this. We have workshops going on all quarter, all of the academic year. We also have teaching consultations. So these are one-on-one conversations with an experienced IA who works with us, and they have a lot of experience. They're wonderful to talk with. So even when you're just stuck on like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an IA, I don't know what to do on the first day, come talk with us. We're here to help. We have strategies for you. We can help you get started. And we also have a ton of online resources that we'll share with you as well when you become an IA. So that's sort of an overview of what we have. But I know a lot of this is probably a little bit later in your mind because first you want to get to UC San Diego and potentially work with Martha, depending on your requirements and on your luck, I guess, if you get to work with Martha, because she's amazing. But what I want you to know, what I want you to take away from this is that if you get to TA at, or any tutor reader role at UC San Diego, we are here to support you in doing that well. So it's a great experience for you and for your students. And if you want to teach later as well, we are also here for you. So we have a more advanced pedagogy course and other training for when you're sort of looking at job applications in the future. We also have those opportunities. So that is all I have. And I think I'll turn it back to our hosts here. I know mine is very short, but I'm absolutely just so happy to be here with you all.
Thank you both so much. I know that we already have a number of really good questions in the chat. So I might ask our co-hosts or our panelists to maybe read through those and identify some top questions that could apply to several. And then I'll go through my reminders and then maybe we'll address those top questions. Okay, so some important deadlines and reminders. 2 things that you can actually start doing right now if you haven't already done so is 1, request your visa document via iPortal. So you can check the status. Let's say you've already applied for your I-20 or DS 2019. You can just check the status and the due date actually via iportal.ucsd.edu. And if you have any specific questions, you can always email us at inewstudent@ucsd.edu. The other thing that you can actually start doing now is applying for on-campus housing. So students who have accepted their admission to UC San Diego, as soon as you accept that admission, you can actually start to apply for on-campus housing. Many of our students prefer to live on campus because of the convenience as well as the rate. And so HDH Grad and Family Housing.ucsd.edu is a great place to do that. A few upcoming webinars. So on May 3rd, we'll talk about graduate student funding. And on May 10th, we'll talk about CBIS transfers. So that applies, let's say, if you are currently in the US studying at an institution and you would like to transfer your F1 or your J1 record to UC San Diego as your next institution of education, that would be a CBIS transfer. And we'll kind of go into some more details May 10th. And then in September, we're really excited to welcome all of our students at New International Student Orientation. You can find more details about that at iorientation.ucsd.edu. All right, in addition to the ones I mentioned, on May 12th, we'll actually have a session dedicated to student life and getting involved on campus. That session will actually be led by some current international graduate students at UC San Diego. So if you would like to ask questions to other international graduate students about what is life like, how did you find your community, what are ways to get involved, that's a great resource for you. And on May 17th, we'll talk about campus safety. So again, you can access previous webinar recordings as well as sign up for future webinars at iwebinars.ucsd.edu by clicking on webinars for newly admitted Tritons. And then we have an Ask Triton feature. So our website is really comprehensive, but we also understand that it can be a little overwhelming at first, especially when you're first starting your journey and starting to prepare for UC San Diego. So I know that a number of our students will actually type in, let's say like, oh, I have a question about my I-20 or OPT or CBIS transfer, and you can type that into the Ask Triton box, and that will kind of direct you the right place to go oftentimes. So it's really useful for our students, and we hope that you'll check it out. All right, so now we'll get to our question and answer time. I know that we have about 10 minutes, and so I want to make sure we use this time well. And so I'll kind of defer to my co-hosts and my other panelists on today's webinar. Are there any like top questions that you're seeing come through the Q&A that you would like to address?
I can go first. So there are a few questions about submitting pending admissions documents and the timing of that. So in general, we recommend submitting those documents as soon as you can. So if you have completed these degrees already and you're able to send that documentation before fall quarter begins, that would be fantastic. But if you are still enrolled in a program and you're still completing your completing your degree, or if you are unable to get the documents right away and you prefer to bring them when you come in fall quarter, that's okay as well. It's really just for our office kind of spreading out all the timing that we're submitting those documents or that we're collecting those documents and processing them kind of over time that helps us instead of getting a whole bunch all at once. So the kind of general rule is as soon as you can, but yes, you can submit those documents when you arrive for fall quarter. That's okay too.
Great, thank you so much, Shauna. Martha or Erilyn, are there any common questions or you feel like really key questions coming through the Q&A that you would like to address?
I'm typing in the ones I know, but I'm guessing Martha probably has much more than I do. So I'll let you take it, Martha.
Yeah, so Erilyn, I found the one that you might be a part of, which is we've talked a lot about TA-ships, but what about RAs? But in any case, for many of these students, it's very specific, your question. So in general, hopefully, because I noticed the time, hopefully your question in the Q&A was answered when I went through those slides about those requirements. I do find, let's see, for students in the Q&A, let's see.
Martha, can I just jump in here? We have
Yes.
another webinar coming up on May 3rd on grad student funding and some financial opportunities that are not just TA. So in regards to questions about RA, often the research assistant or associate, we will shorten that to RA. That's probably a better venue to touch upon that position. I'm also going to put a link in the chat to a page on our website that talks about employment opportunities. So that's more broad than the TA discussion for today. So I'm just going to put that in there.
Thank you so much for that, Shauna. And the employment webinar will be a wonderful one to attend. So I encourage all of you to do that. Many of these questions are very, very specific to unique situations. So all I'm going to say, and hopefully I have covered in those slides because I'm noting the time at which the question was submitted, was that in terms of employment, we want our graduate students to know if you want employment, we want you to have it. And for us, it's a matter of complying with state and UC regulations. And that's why all of the UCs and many of the other California universities and colleges also have this requirement because it is in the state. And know that we want you to have many opportunities to apply to be a TA, and especially to be successful at it. So as I mentioned earlier, if you joined us late, I'll mention it again. The policy is currently under review, the English language policy for teaching. It's under review. And at some point, after collecting the data, because that's what research institutions do, after we collect the data, there will be policy changes and they will be announced and they will be effective fall 2022. So that's what we all have to look forward to. And those are the things that I want to encourage you to check. First, attend that employment webinar. Second, continue to check the Grad Division website, because that's where the changes, the main changes will first be. And then, because as a grad student, you are a member of your department, check your department website. My program, I will follow what the graduate division changes in policy are. I will follow what the department changes are. So hopefully seeing it in a bigger picture will help you with your specific question here today.
I did have one question that kind of stuck out to me that came through the Q&A. So this question reads, can I apply for TA positions in multiple departments? Are you able to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, and absolutely. You know, it's interesting, since I do the majority of the testing, what I see as a pattern is many departments hiring students who are a grad student in another department. For example, biological sciences recently hired a computer science student for a biostatistics course. So look at the opportunities that you can apply to, and I think be eager and excited for what that means, that you have a unique skill set and that your knowledge will help a student know the material in a slightly different way than it is taught in the home department, say a biostats course offered in the biostats department. So I want you to know that you're not just students. Each of you, to us, are individuals with unique backgrounds and qualifications. The one thing you have to have, all of you in common, is you have to have knowledge of the course content. And some departments will provide additional training to support you. But when I hire a student, I'm really looking for what you're going to bring to the program and the unique way you're going to support students and help them be successful. And so perhaps you'll think of the job in that way.
And I see exactly. One last question that I was hoping to, and Erin, maybe you can just speak to this a little bit, is a common question of when is a good time to start thinking about it and applying for these positions. And I think Martha briefly touched on it, but if you wanted to maybe verbally highlight what you shared in the chat.
Sure, absolutely. I know this is somewhat of a easy way out for answering it, but the short answer is to talk with your department, because each department has somewhat different timelines in when they release positions and when they make assignments. So first and foremost, check with your department, but also keep an eye. The dashboard that Shauna posted for employment opportunities has some great opportunities that might be outside of your department as well, which Martha touched on. So the short answer is talk to your department because it can vary. I also really quickly wanted to touch, someone asked about, if the workload is too much, what happens? I don't know, to be honest, what happens financially, et cetera, but I do know that we really value your mental and well-being while you're at UC San Diego. So if something is feeling overwhelming, talk with your course instructor you're working with, talk with your department, and talk with our our counseling and psychological services. We have an amazing program here. So I just want to sort of throw that out there that whether it's with TAing or whether it's with something completely different altogether, we care about you as a person. And first and foremost, you are a person and a graduate student before you're an instructor or anything else. So I want to throw that out there as we wrap up.
So first off, thank you so much to our campus partners who joined us for today and just covered so much good information and just, yeah, provided such a warm welcome to our students. I went ahead and I put follow-up. If you have any follow-up questions and you would like to continue to contact our department, you can utilize that contact information that I put in the chat. And we hope that you will join us for future pre-arrival webinars. With that, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you and have a great rest of your day, everyone.